The city moved like a restless river, its neon veins pulsing through cracked sidewalks and glass towers. Amid the chaos stood Amara Devine, a woman whose name glittered in magazines and business conferences, whispered in boardrooms as both a promise and a threat. She had built an empire from nothing but late nights, silent tears, and a talent for seeing what others missed. To the outside world she was steel, but beneath the lacquered armor lay a heart that still ached for simplicity. Amara had grown up in a two-room apartment above a laundromat. Her father cleaned office buildings at night, his fingers permanently pruned from bleach and water. Her mother stitched garments until her eyes blurred. It was in those years Amara learned how the invisible people, cleaners, janitors, the ones who moved silently in the background, kept the world intact. That knowledge never left her, even as her own world expanded into penthouses, private jets, and investors with shark smiles. It began one winter night when she returned to the company headquarters long after the employees had gone. The janitorial staff moved like quiet phantoms between rows of desks. She noticed one of them, a man with weathered hands and a calm demeanor, scrubbing the marble floor of the lobby with the concentration of a sculptor. His name tag read Louis. He greeted her with a nod, respectful but not obsequious. Something about his steadiness drew her in. Over the next weeks, she found reasons to linger, bringing coffee down to the lobby, asking small questions, learning about his life. Louis had once been a teacher in his home country before political unrest forced him to flee. Now he cleaned floors to support his sister's medical bills. His eyes carried both grief and dignity. Amara admired him. She had dated CEOs, influencers, and venture capitalists, but none had Louis's quiet gravity. One evening, she surprised even herself by asking him to dinner. He hesitated, then agreed. Their dinners were simply small restaurants tucked into side streets, meals that tasted of cumin and laughter. Louis listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, he asked questions that pierced straight through her public persona. "Do you ever miss who you were before all this?" he asked once, and she couldn't answer. They dated for 6 months. Louis never once asked about her wealth. When he brought her home to his modest apartment, she saw books stacked against peeling paint, photographs of his family arranged like tiny shrines. She gave money quietly to his sister's hospital, but he never asked for it. He was proud, maybe too proud. When she broached the subject of marriage, Louis grew silent. "I love you," he said, "but I don't want to be a symbol or a stepping stone. You have a life that's moving too fast for me." And then he left. No dramatic farewell, just a note that said he needed to find himself again. Amara was shattered but not surprised. Louis had taught her how to look inward, and inward she looked, finding both hunger and emptiness. Months passed. Amara focused on her empire but felt an ache that board meetings and press releases could not soothe. One spring night, at a charity gala she had funded, she slipped out to the back alley to breathe. There, collecting trash bags, was another janitor named Caleb. He was younger than Louis, with kind eyes and a wry smile. When he saw her shivering in the evening air, he offered his jacket without hesitation. Caleb was a dreamer. He wrote poetry in the margins of cleaning schedules, played guitar at night in subway tunnels. He had no illusions about changing the world, but he had faith in beauty. Amara found his optimism like oxygen. With him, she could laugh again, be silly, be human. They went on long night drives, windows down, the city unspooling like a ribbon. He didn't care about her money either, but he cared about her spirit. "You've built so much," he told her once. "But have you built a place to rest?" That question lingered in her mind. They dated nearly a year. Caleb wanted to start a community arts center for underprivileged kids. Amara offered to bankroll it. He hesitated but eventually agreed. The center became real, a bright place full of murals and music. She watched him bloom in his purpose. She began to think of marriage again. But then one evening he showed up at her penthouse, eyes rimmed red. "I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. "I'm losing myself. People don't see me, they see your money, your power. Even when I look in the mirror, I see you first. It broke her. She realized she had tried to rescue Caleb, as she had tried to rescue Louis, but in doing so she had put herself at the center of their lives. She had wanted equals, but she had made herself indispensable instead. Another year passed. Her company had grown beyond anything she imagined. She was hailed as a visionary, but she felt like a ghost walking through her own achievements. At a regional facility of her corporation, an industrial plant where her company produced eco-friendly materials, she met Jonas. He was older than the others, mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and the quiet of someone who had seen too much. Jonas was a janitor by choice. He had once been a social worker but left after burnout and tragedy. Cleaning, he said, is honest. The dirt tells you what's real. He had a dry humor that made her laugh despite herself. He never treated her differently, even when he learned who she was. With Jonas, Amara felt something unfamiliar: stillness. He didn't want to be saved, didn't want her money. He wanted walks in the park, tea brewed slowly, evenings spent reading aloud from old books. He didn't ask about her business but asked about her parents, her childhood, the things she missed most. He was the first man who didn't seem to be in awe of her or intimidated by her. She fell deeply. With him she saw a future of quiet mornings and evenings full of slow music. She proposed marriage. He smiled sadly. Amara, he said, I can't. Not yet. She was stunned. Why? She whispered. Because you're still running, Jonas replied. You're still testing. You're chasing something, or maybe kindness, maybe redemption. But you're not still enough to love me. Not really. And I'm done chasing. Those words hit her like a cold wave. He refused to chase her. He refused to be another man who built his life around her orbit. Instead, he stood firm, gentle but unmovable. Amara spent that night walking the city, her empire glittering around her like glass shards. She thought of Louis, Caleb, and Jonas, the three janitors who had each taught her something different. Louis taught her dignity. Caleb taught her generosity. Jonas taught her boundaries and self-awareness. Together they formed a mirror she could not look away from. In the weeks that followed, she began to change her company from within. She increased wages for all staff, especially custodial workers. She created scholarship programs for employees' families, built housing assistance programs, and started mentorship circles. She went to the offices unannounced to speak with staff, to listen. She began to build not just an empire of products, but an empire of humanity. She also began therapy. She faced the girl who had grown up above the laundromat, the girl who had equated love with rescue. She learned to sit in silence. She learned to do nothing sometimes, to let life arrive instead of chasing it. Months later she received a letter from Louis, telling her his sister had recovered and he had begun teaching again. She received a photograph from Caleb, standing before a mural at the arts center. Children gathered around him like birds. And she received a postcard from Jonas, just a photo of a quiet lake at sunrise, no words. Amara smiled. She wasn't angry. She didn't feel abandoned. She felt a broken bar hole. For the first time she realized the empire she had built was not a monument to herself but a platform for others to rise. It was enough. Years passed. Amara's company became known globally as a model for ethical leadership. She appeared on magazine covers but spoke mostly about the workers, the unsung people who held the company together. She gave away large portions of her wealth to community projects. She built libraries, health clinics, art spaces, and clean water systems in countries where her company operated. One rainy evening, as she stood in the headquarters lobby, new marble floors shining under soft lights, as she watched a janitor sweeping near the elevator, she walked over, introduced herself, and asked how he was doing. He looked startled but then smiled. They talked about his children, his plans, his favorite music. When she walked away, she felt a quiet joy. She wasn't looking for romance, she was looking for connection. And she found it everywhere. Amara Devine had dated 3 janitors and almost married them all. But in the end, the one who refused to chase her gave her the greatest gift, herself. And with that, she finally stopped running.